little. And that's why I thank you once again for joining us today. Today we have a special episode. I'll be interviewing my friend, and he is a friend of mine. And these days he's kind of a close friend. So it's a privilege to do this, and we've done ministry together. And in fact, he's actually one of the writers on the Saints .org website. So I want to introduce really quickly, Ben. What's up, bro?
What's up, bro? It's been
How's
a
it going, man?
while.
I know.
It's
So
going good, man. It's finally, we get to do this.
I know, yeah, yeah, I know, and I think we've done some things together, but on the ref blog, not so much on my blog or my podcast. So,
Yeah.
but thank you, bro. Thank you for taking the time to do this. It's exciting, man, because I've actually seen you kind of grow into this, the online space, right? The online ministry
hmm
space, um, and it's just really neat just to hear you start making these episodes online. So obviously, I want you on here to talk about that, but also too, man, I just want to hear your testimony, bro. I'm trying to think like, did I ever hear Ben's testimony, like just the raw testimony, and I think I've always heard like a summary of it, a brief
hmm
summary. The Lord saved me, and then move on, but actually never
Right.
knew about your life before Christ and all that. So, but before we get into that, bro, in case people haven't heard of you, I know some of my followers probably seen your face on my videos, but can you just give a quick introduction of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me here too. My name is Ben Salazar, and I am a husband. I am a father. I am a church member, just a layperson. And I was born and raised in El Salvador. I've been in the United States for 16 years, coming on 17 this coming Wednesday, February 7th. I still remember. A day marked in my mind forever when I came to this country. I have three kids. One is adopted, which is something that hopefully we can get into. And like Arturo said, I write for the Saints Edified blog, and I also have my own podcast and Facebook page. So I always get confused right here. That's my page, and you can find it on any regular podcast app. But that's in a nutshell who I am, and I live in Bakersfield, California, where you used to live.
Yeah, yeah, man. I was born and raised in Bakersfield, so. It's kind of funny, bro, about that. A lot of people actually know about Bakersfield, man. Like I come to Tennessee, and they're like, "Oh, Bakersfield, you're from
Really?
Bakersfield, yeah." And I was like, "Yeah, how you know about it?" Like, "Yeah, like the country singers are from there, and
Oh
and
yeah,
uh, and yeah, it's known. It's kind of a joke to a lot of people too. So anyway,
right.
um, but all right, man. That's great. I want to just jump right into it, bro, and just start asking you the questions.
Sure.
Again, man, I want you to be just as detailed and explicit as you want. When it comes to your background, your what you do now. Um, if people are interested, there's an early episode on Saints Edified where I interviewed Ben and his wife. I really enjoyed that, and I gotta give you guys some props for dealing with me because my setup was so ghetto, it was ghetto, man, and it's okay though,
It's
but
fine.
but
Yeah.
but but you guys did a good job, man. You guys, there was so much information. It was about pro life ministry and the
Mhm.
arguments, and you guys got into it, bro. It was a blessing. Um, so if anyone wants to check that episode out, I'll leave a link in the description. Again, this is like 3 years ago, man. Probably more than that, right?
More than that. Oh yeah.
Yeah, probably 4 years ago. But yeah, so it's been a while. But yeah. Anyways, man, here it is. So I just want to know, man, how is life today as a Christian?
So I right now I'm excited because our church has finally started to look into evangelism and outreach in our local city. We haven't done that before, so our church has been uh, mostly emphasizing missions, which is great. That's wonderful, wonderful stuff to send prepared missionaries to unreached areas of the world. But now, as our church has been reforming, we're looking more into evangelism, which is something that my wife and I have been involved for as long as I've known her, uh, both back in LA where I first lived and now here. So life as a Christian now is I can say that. I can also say it's busy with the kids, the parent side, and also trying to prioritize things like catechizing my kids and doing family worship with my family. Um, and reading them stories and being involved in their schooling and things like that. As fathers, it's important that we realize that doesn't just fall to our wives, to the mothers, right? It's important and essential for our kids that we play an active role in that. So really, it's my life right now is mostly focused on that, how to be faithful to my family, how to be faithful in being a good husband, a good father, a good church member, a good friend, a good all of these things, and also now leading the evangelism efforts. It's pretty busy, bro. It's pretty busy.
I bet, bro. I bet. And tell us a little bit about the ministry that you partnered up with Nick, with Nick Dirks and others at Sovereign Grace. A few years ago, I joined you guys a couple times to yeah. If you want to talk about that a little bit, go for it.
Yeah. So that ministry is no longer active, is no longer ongoing, but we do hope in the future to go back to abortion mills. But yeah, we a group of us would go to the mills, including Arturo. You even joined us for the Women's March here in Kern County, which was an insane day. Um, but yeah, we would go to the abortion mills and share the gospel. But I think also what was very important for us was that we not only that we didn't compromise, because the most important thing right now is to save a baby or to try to help a mother in need. Those things are true, but I think that the dominating thought for us was if we just I'm going to say if we say, but at the end of the day, we know that it is God who saves through means, right? But if we were to save a baby or help a mother in need, but they go to their eternal destination without Christ, we haven't done much that is of lasting and eternal effect. You know what I mean? So it was important for us to go there and say the reason why abortion is wrong is not because it's icky or because it's kind of uncomfortable. No, it's because there is a holy God whose moral law you and I have both broken, that we're accountable to, that we will give an answer to one day. And we've broken his law, and he is holy, and we are sinful, and we are not looking down on you as if we're better than you, but we are here to call you to repentance. We are here to tell you that abortion is sin. We are here to tell you that abortion is murder, which is sadly enough a no-no in most of evangelicalism. You do not call abortion murder is the constant refrain, right? Because you're going to push someone away. But of course, you can do that by being a jerk, right? You can unnecessarily add offense to an already offensive gospel, or you can bring the truth, but then also say, Christ died on the cross for sins. Christ died to forgive us of our sins. And there's also a church that is willing to come alongside you and support you as far as we can to help you and your baby, right? So,
Yeah, yeah, man. And that was an edifying time for me, because like I've always I just remember that was around the time period where a law was passed of
mm,
allowing to have an abortion later on in the pregnancy.
yep.
And it just broke my heart. And around that time, you guys were starting that ministry, man, and it was just a
hmm
blessing. So,
hmm
so yeah, man, good stuff, bro. So, anyways, I've actually been several years ago. He doesn't remember it when I met him, but
Here we
you
go.
know, it doesn't bother me, whatever. It was a long time ago, So, no, but yeah, I met you a long time ago. This might have been, man, in like 2011 probably to 2010. It was a while back, man.
Yep.
And I would go to Santa Monica,
hmm
and every so often Santa Monica was about 2 hours away from Bakersfield, um, and I would go out there with a few friends, and every so often we'll see these guys on the Third Street Promenade strip, whatever you want to call it, just sharing the gospel, a very strong Calvinistic gospel, right? and
Yeah.
and sometimes it was just to argue. Some guys will set up just to argue,
Yeah.
but anyways, that's why I first met Ben. You know, he was there, and then years later, he ended up at a church that we both attended for a while, and just became friends, man. And so it's been a blessing, bro. But what I really want to know, man, is how was life for you uh, before Christ, before actually,
Mm.
you know, coming to faith and asking for forgiveness of your sins and being a Christian, you know. So how was life before that? And this is where I want to ask you, man, about, you know, like how was life growing up in El Salvador, and up to the point where you finally realized, like, I need a savior, you know, and this Christ that I've heard about before, you know, I need him. Without him, I'm nothing, and you know,
Mm.
I deserve hell, you know, but because of his grace and his love and what he done on the cross, you know. So up to that point, bro, just if you just want to go ahead and start, I don't know how early you want to start, or if you want to highlight certain points of your life before Christ, to give us a picture of who Ben was before.
Yeah, sure, man. So yeah, like I said, I was born and raised in El Salvador. If anyone doesn't know, that's that's uh, that's I was gonna say below Mexico. What's the word? That's south, right? Yeah. So you go south Mexico, you go Guatemala, and then you hit El Salvador. Uh, so that's where I was born and raised. Tiny, tiny, tiny country. My whole life, I was raised in a Christian home. I remember my dad uh, always reading his Bible out loud in the bathroom or singing hymns. Like as far as I can remember, I've always been in a Christian household, right? Always been around that. Always heard the gospel, even in simple, basic form. Um, and I guess I always kind of assumed that I was a Christian because I would pray the sinner's prayer. I remember being little and being so scared, bro. There were times I remember one particular night. I don't know how I remember this, but I just do. Where I was like, I don't think I prayed the sinner's prayer right. So I would get on my knees and I would pray it, and then 2 minutes later, I was like, did I pray? Did I say everything I was supposed to? So I would go back. So I prayed the sinner's prayer that night. I don't know, like 50 times or something. I was so scared. Um, and really so my upbringing in El Salvador was, my parents loved the Lord. My parents were strict, which I'm thankful for. They sought as best as they could to raise me to fear their authority, to fear the Lord, to fear other authority, which I carry with me to this day, and I will forever be grateful to them. That's really as much as I remember being uh, important to my Christian walk in El Salvador. But there was not really much mention of wrath, holiness. That was thrown around, uh, but as a passing thought, right? Here's the problem with the gospel in Latin America. The Latin American church, and when I say that, I don't mean just like here in the States, people that have come from Latin America to the States, but in actual Latin American countries, is that Latin America is predominantly either charismatic, which comes along with a lot of heresies, a lot of oneness Pentecostalism, a lot of um, other heresies, or a form of syncretistic paganism mixed with Roman Catholicism, um, or Jehovah's Witnesses, etc. But there is no solid presence of Reformed theology in Latin America, and I say that because it's important to what happens next in my story. So that's the kind of Christianity I grew up with. Not very intellectual in the sense of let's learn and understand what the Christian faith is. Let's learn and understand what the church, what rich heritage from our church fathers we have, all that stuff. That's not present. At most, you'll know about Billy Graham, but that's kind of like where church history starts, kind of thing, or with that particular local church's history. That's as far back as it goes. But there are no ties to that rich heritage that we have. So, but you do have the gospel. I'm not saying that the gospel is not there. Back in my cage stage days, I might have been like, yeah, there is no gospel presence in El Salvador. And now I'm like, okay, there is. I'm just exaggerating. Just because Reformed theology is not in Latin America doesn't mean that the gospel is not there, right? So I've learned that over the years. I learned to calm down and kind of look at things a little more soberly. But
Right.
so I come to the States, and I go through a very necessary period of humbling. The Lord really humbled me, because I grew in El Salvador. I would always go to private Christian schools. That's my whole life, private Christian schools. And even what public schools, when you think public schools in the U.S., is not the same thing that you would have public schools in El Salvador. Those are poor, very poor schools, but the culture, at least back when I grew up, was not the same. Like when you look around at young people nowadays, I'm not that old, but I think I've earned the right to say to some people, those are kids, and I'm not a kid,
Right.
but there was a culture of respect. There was a culture, at least I was inculcated that, and by really good teachers in my schools growing up. There was a culture of respect. There was a culture of knowing your place. I am really grateful for my educational upbringing, for sure. So just in terms of education, the big shock for me coming here to the States was, in El Salvador, I'm used to very rigorous education, even before high school. But I come here, and it's like, here's a worksheet, and it's just like, write sentences or some dumb thing like that, for ninth grade. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
This is the level of education you have? So you just understand my background and then coming to that, right? So
Yeah.
that was
Right.
one shock, but not as shocking as being exposed to public school. So I come to the States being in private Christian schools all my life, and I go to Southgate, California, public school, Southgate High. I've never been exposed to public school before, and I'm in a new country. I do speak the language at that point, but enough to understand my teachers, but not
Mhm.
kind of like the California slang.
Yeah.
So that was like learning a whole new language for me.
Mm.
So I there's that cultural shock, there's the educational shock, and then there is the moral shock, I'll say, right? So I'm in a public school in California, 2007. This was back in 2007. And I'm finally exposed to things that I was never exposed to, like kids making out and drugs and fights and all that stuff. I'd never seen that before. But I go through a stage uh, of pitying myself, right?
Mm.
Oh Lord, I am your Elijah, and look, no one here fears your name. Please take me out of here. And now looking back, I'm like, no, I'm grateful for that time, because it was like, it exposed me. This is the real world. You've been in a bubble all your life, and not that bubbles are wrong. Don't hear me saying that, because
Yeah.
we want to teach our kids and insulate them from a lot of the horrors of the world
Mhm.
as we prepare them to face them. But I was never prepared to face any of that. But back then, I just saw it kind of like, I don't want to be here. I don't belong here because I'm a Christian,
Yeah.
and no one here fears the Lord. So I was there for 2 years in that high school. And during that time, I met a girl who would eventually become my wife. Um, Now, here's the third stage, I guess I would say, of my life. She, as you well know, is a very passionate person for truth and for learning and knowledge and stuff like that.
Mm.
She was a Calvinist. And so she starts telling me about God's holiness, God's wrath, presenting the gospel in a way that I really have never heard before, or
Mhm.
explained to as much detail as she did. She starts telling me about election reprobation, in even damnation, wrath, holiness, but in a more uh, comprehensive way, in a way that ties everything together.
Yeah, yeah.
And at first, I resisted that a lot because I was like, that's not the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible is all love. The God of the Bible would never send anyone to hell, or he would never. This whole election thing, the word election is not in the Bible, right? Like I was going through that.
Ben, was all this was this happening like while at school, like during lunch, or like in
No,
like past?
good question. Yeah, no. So she would go to another school. She went to
Okay,
another church. Uh, Actually, we were going to Calvary Chapel. Good people though. Now when you go through kind of a cage stage, you kind of see like there's nothing I can learn from people that don't hold to a certain view, and that's not true. I learned a lot from people at Calvary, but at the same time, it was sorely lacking a solid presentation of the gospel, of our sinfulness, of the holiness of God, the righteous wrath of God against sin, all that stuff, right? So yeah, she was going to a separate church, and eventually I started going to church with her sometimes, to MacArthur's church, um, in Sun Valley. And uh, yeah, she's sharing with me stuff, like you said, from Santa Monica. She had this binder where she kept all her printouts about information on evolution, on apologetics, on
okay, okay.
on the age of the earth. I mean, she just had a whole bunch of stuff in there, but she also had a big old section on Calvinism. And she's like, here, she gives me the binder, right?
It's like, "Ooh, here, take
Yeah,
it."
yeah, yeah, yeah. And she's like, read this. I remember she took out a little Hello Kitty post-it thing, and she wrote a list. Read these things in order.
Uh,
I open the binder, and the first thing I
Bro,
see is,
it's so vital and so critical that you have to mention this Hello Kitty, man. Just
I remember that.
I want people to picture that. So okay, all right, go for it. And before at this point, are you guys kind of already like having feelings for each other? Like, is like, are you guys starting to like really like each other at this point? And
Not quite yet.
not quite yet. Okay, 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 okay,
But there's some going on there, but
okay,
not quite yet.
okay. All right.
She's just she was going through a cage stage at that point, but I'm kind of like her project. I mean, she cared for me. No, don't get me
Yeah,
wrong. She really cared for me. She really,
yeah,
that's something that to this day I admire about her. She cares about the truth. She cares about, believing in error is something very important. It's
mm,
important to live in God's world, in God's truth, and in God's reality.
okay,
So the first thing I see when I open the binder is Spurgeon's A Defense of Calvinism.
okay,
The
cool.
first words in that document he wrote are something along the lines of, Calvinism is nothing other than the biblical gospel. Now, I have no background on this, and I am resistant, and that's the first stuff I read, and I'm like, I close the binder, and I'm like, okay, this stuff is a cult. This stuff is
Mhm,
definitely unbiblical.
mm,
I will have nothing to do with it. But she persisted. She kept going. She kept talking to me, and eventually, by the Lord's grace, I saw how biblical the doctrines are, great, and how beautiful they were too.
mm,
That eventually, over time, I came to realize that this is not um, cold, just
yeah,
mere intellectual doctrine. That this affects every area of life. But that came later. At first, the
yeah,
Lord had to break my uh, arrogance. There is a kind of false humility and false simplicity that a lot of Christians have, particularly Hispanics, when it comes to doctrine. It's like everything's so simple, you're
mm,
complicating everything. When sometimes all you're doing is asking good questions. And look, let's go to Romans 9.
yeah.
You're so intellectual. I just opened the Bible. I'm not even reading anything by Calvin. But yeah, so that's what the Lord was working on me. That
Yeah.
that
Well, but just
we,
really quick, I just have one
yeah, go
question for
for it.
you about that
I'm
part. So
gonna
you said,
keep going. If you don't stop me and guide me, I'm gonna
no,
keep
yeah,
going.
no, no, it's good, it's good. So you said, okay, so first you were resistant, and then suddenly it becomes beautiful to you.
Yes.
So I always like to ask, like, how long did that take? That period of this is dumb, this is crazy, it's a cult, I don't want anything to do with this, to now, like, man, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
Did it take like weeks, months? Um,
I would say a couple months. It depends who you ask. If you ask my wife, she'd probably give you a different answer. But
okay.
it was very. I was very reluctant at first. At first, because she called me one night. We were talking on the phone. She called me one night, and she's like,
And are you sure there's no feelings at this point?
"There are,
Okay,
but
okay, okay.
as she's getting more passionate about this Calvinism thing, I'm starting to go
Yeah.
like, it's not too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, uh,
Okay,
it's
okay, all right.
not
So
too late
she
to go
calls you.
back.
All right, she calls you one night, and what happens?
She calls me one night, and she's like, "Look, I've shared with you more than enough about this from the
Mm,
Bible. I've shown you from the Bible how this is biblical, and you
mm,
still refuse to accept it. You still choose to reject it willfully. Now
mm.
this is the cage stage part. She's like, I'm afraid for your soul. I'm sorry. You need to repent." So
Yeah.
I spent like that whole night scared and like, oh my goodness, I'm going to hell tonight.
Yeah.
But I mean, part of it I needed to hear it. Part of it
Yeah.
she was being a bit much, but uh, it was a good night of reflection for me.
Yeah.
Uh, it didn't become beautiful that morning. In the morning
Right, right.
I was like smelling tulips and stuff. No,
Yes.
it took a while, but eventually I was soaking everything up and trying to share with my parents, although they
Mm.
were extremely resistant to it. I remember one time, um, I got, how, I don't know if they still do it, but Grace to You would send CDs if you asked them for it,
Oh, okay. Yes. I've heard of
sermons,
that.
whatever. Yeah, it's crazy. You and I still lived during the time where you had to like order
Yeah.
CDs to
I
listen to
know. It's
series, and
rigorous.
now you just stream everything. But
Yep.
so I order stuff, and my dad sees it says Grace to You. At this point, he knows that's John MacArthur.
Mm.
John MacArthur's a Calvinist.
Yeah.
You don't listen to
Mhm.
Calvinists in this house, right? So one morning, I'm waking up. I'm still living with my parents here, not married yet, and I hear a familiar voice. Right, and you're waking up. You're still orienting yourself, and I'm like, "Oh, that voice sounds familiar." So I go to my parents' room and I put my ear on the door, and it's John MacArthur. So I open the door, and my dad's like, I need to know what kind of stuff you're listening to." you know Ever since then, that's all he listens to this day.
Wow.
uh,
Wow, man.
so he did come to realize uh, the beauty of the doctrines of grace.
It's just crazy, bro, to think that. I mean, Maurice played a major role in that. You know what I mean? Having your dad,
Absolutely.
and then I guess are both parents now Calvinistic on
Yes.
and although we don't want to sound too cage stagey right at this point in our life, but we do want people to embrace Calvinism.
Sure.
We think it's biblical, and it is a biblical description.
Hmm.
I guess in detail when it comes to the gospel, right? Like it explains the mechanics of the gospel, and it's just a beautiful. It's a beautiful thing for Christians to embrace, and just the fact that this girl at the time she might have been 16, 17 years old, around there, right, around there,
Yeah.
made that much of an impact in someone's family. It's just
Hmm.
powerful, bro. It's just powerful. I mean, yeah, she was cage stagey and everything, but she like you said earlier, she was passionate and would not back down from what she believed to be the truth, right, in scripture. And the effects of that is just beautiful, man. So I didn't know that. I didn't know that that was the connection on how your parents became Calvinistic, man. I mean, that's pretty awesome. So,
Oh yeah, no, and I mean, I think part of it, sure, that there's like a case stage element to it, but I think in another is what I mentioned earlier, that that reticence that a lot of Hispanics have, uh,
mhm,
that hesitation that
yeah,
Hispanics have to anything that looks like thinking too deeply about things. That's
yeah, right,
always suspect. That's that.
yeah,
So a huge part of that resistance is not because she was too passionate. At the end of
mhm,
the day, like I said, we grew up in a bubble, and my parents were always Hermits, if people invited them anywhere, they would just stay in their house and never get out.
Mhm.
And so they were never really exposed to other people's personalities, or accept the fact that not everyone's going to look like the Salazar family.
Yeah.
So I think a huge part of it too is that they just didn't know how to relate to people that were different than them,
Hmm.
and therefore I didn't know how to relate to anyone that didn't conform to what I found comfortable. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
No. Yeah.
So and part of it is, her mom's Cuban, dad's Mexican, and so she has just her personality, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now I know that, right?
Hmm.
But back then I wasn't used to it, and so I was resistant to that, really because of pride. There was a lot of pride that the Lord worked on, and that kind of false humility that is permeates a lot of Hispanic thought.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Wow. Yeah, I know what you mean. What you're describing, by the way. I haven't touched on it at all, but I know what you mean about that, like that false sense of humility and like not wanting to express deeper knowledge than what's just on the surface level of the pages of the Bible, and
Yep.
even the Trinity. When we start explaining the Trinity and they get it wrong, you try to correct them. Like all I know is that God is the Father, God is the Son, Holy Spirit. And
Yep.
people think that's like being humble, and it's like a humble brag. It's like
Mm-hmm.
this
Mm-hmm.
person is more spiritual now because they're so more they think like a child and are more, I guess, simplified in their thinking. I guess I don't know. I know what you mean. That might be worthy of another episode to talk
Sure.
about, because it is something that we got to tackle, bro.
Yep.
There's no shame. In fact, I think we're commanded to dive deep into the scriptures, and sometimes it could be a little complex. And then there's real humility there, right? Where we say we will never know, fully comprehend this doctrine, but it's there and we got to study it, so
The
good
the
stuff, bro.
things revealed to us belong to us and to our children.
Yeah.
The things not revealed. I'm paraphrasing the Bible, right?
Hmm.
The Bible itself says whatever is revealed belongs to us and to our children, and this is where the whole family worship aspect comes, right?
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
those things revealed belong to us, not just to us, but to us and to our children, then it's not just the pastors or the
Right.
professors that need to study the Bible and know the Bible. Is you and I, as fathers and husbands,
Hmm.
is every layperson needs to know the Bible, because we're called to exhort one another with songs and psalms and spiritual singing and the scriptures.
Yeah.
So the mere fact that we're believers binds us to each other and binds us to the responsibility to know our Bibles, but even more so if we're husbands and fathers and church members or in charge of anything.
Hmm.
So that responsibility bears upon us, and it's there's nothing humble, there's nothing good about a Christian that is willfully ignorant. That's so. But yeah, you said that that's worthy of another
Oh,
episode.
yeah.
But I think that's worth
No, yeah.
saying.
No, no, yeah, we'll have to talk more about that. So I want to get back to your story, okay? So you're kind of eavesdropping in on your parents, on what they're listening to, and your dad says, I just want to make sure, and then he suddenly becomes Calvinistic in his thinking.
Takes
What
a
happens?
while,
Yeah.
but
So
yeah,
what happens after that point that you start noticing that he's listening to MacArthur?
it took a while. It took years
Okay.
for him to be softened to it, because
Okay.
there were several times that I tried to have conversations, and those just did not go well at all. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this because I have any kind of resentment against my
No, no,
parents.
no. It yeah,
This is just my upgrade, my story.
yeah.
Um,
Bro, I think every Hispanic kid or anyone who had Hispanic parents could relate to what you're saying right
yep,
now.
yep,
So I get it completely. I get it. Yeah.
yeah. But so my and eventually, uh, how do I say this in past? I guess my girlfriend at the time, wife now. So we enter into a relationship, right? And
Mhm.
we keep growing and everything. And I eventually leave Calvary Chapel in good terms,
Yeah.
because I've become convinced I need to find a church that teaches Reformed theology. And this is not, I'm not comfortable staying here anymore. Not just because of my comfort, but I truly believe, the Lord would be pleased if I go somewhere where they teach the Bible,
Mhm.
where they
Yeah.
teach the doctrines of grace. Not that the churches that don't teach it are in sin or anything like that. I'm not saying that, but so I leave the church, which was hard to do. I fear my parents and I respect their authority, and so we're struggling with that. It's like, well, I want to respect my parents because I still live with them, but at the same time, I feel like I need to go somewhere else. Eventually, they're okay with me leaving, and so we go to MacArthur's church for a while. Then we find like a Bible study somewhere with people that hold to Reformed theology, and we're just there for a while. Eventually, 2014. I'm not trying to be vague on purpose. My life is not other than those three main stages.
Mhm.
There's nothing too exciting about my life until later on. 2014, I get married. My wife and I get
Yeah.
married. We start our own life together, and or even sorry, but even before we got married, we're doing the Santa Monica thing. I'm
Mhm.
learning a lot about apologetics there. Uh,
Okay.
I'm exposed to the real world, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm finally, so I read in the Bible about unbelievers and Paul
Yeah.
and the opposition to the gospel, but I'm finally seeing it in person in front of
Okay.
me.
And really quick, man, I want people
Yeah,
to understand Santa Monica Third Street Promenade. Okay. So
yeah,
for some reason, I was really attracted to that place, and maybe I shouldn't have been, but it was really entertaining, right? You go there, you see street performers doing backflips over people,
yeah.
jumping over like 10 people, and you find a lot of good personalities, funny personalities out there, and then all they want is you to give them a
Some
tip. They'll
weird
be like,
personalities
yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah, and Santa Monica is obviously it's right by the beach, and I like the beach. People think it wasn't a nice beach. I liked going there, but it was just a fun place to be at, right? And
Yeah.
on some days it could be very family oriented too, right?
Hmm.
But later on, you start seeing certain things, and you find people travel there. A lot of people with that don't share the Christian worldview.
Oh yeah.
Muslims, you guys interacted with Muslims, you guys interacted
Hmm.
with liberals, and
Atheists. Oh yeah.
atheists, yeah, and so I just couldn't imagine this now, right? Like you were sheltered, you're in this bubble for so long. You meet Maurice, or no, I'm sorry, you come to the States, and then now you meet Maurice, and now you're just thrown out there. Not really thrown, you couldn't go out there willfully, I guess,
Yeah.
yeah, but you're
Well,
there,
because I
and
like her,
yeah,
too, and I'm like, hey, we go to Santa Monica, and we're gonna be there. Yep, let's go. Because
and you're
I'm into her now. I really
yeah,
like her and everything, and I get to meet her parents and stuff. So at first, I'm at Santa Monica just because I like her. Because I don't, I'm still not, I don't like,
yeah,
and you know me, I'm not a type to like confrontation, to like
right, yeah,
I'm still seeing this whole apologetics thing as
mhm,
unnecessary, and it's like, well, this is not pleasing to the Lord, kind of thing.
yeah,
I don't hold to that now, obviously, but
right,
I did get to see good and bad examples of how to share the gospel, how to do apologetics. Um, but I will say that I am eternally grateful for my wife, because the Lord used her to get me out of
mhm,
my bubble and to realize, okay, it's time for you to put into practice all the things that you've learned, all the things that
yeah,
you're learning, and realize that even though you were sheltered your whole life, you still at one point did not. You're still at one point were a child of wrath. You still at one point did not have Christ in your heart. And guess what? These people all around you, they need the Lord as well.
mhm,
So
right,
the Lord reached me just because I don't have what a lot of people call an exciting testimony, right? Like
right,
a lot of tragedies and stuff like that. It
yeah,
doesn't mean that my salvation was any less exciting than
right,
other people. There was
no,
still a miracle done in my heart and in my life,
yeah,
and so my high school experience humbled me as well. And now here I am in the Thirsty Promenade, and the Lord is slowly working in my heart. We would be out there late, bro. So we
Yeah.
got to encounter so many people from so many different backgrounds.
Mhm.
Eventually, I'm behind the mic. I'm the one doing some street preaching out there and stuff, and it's intimidating as heck, bro. I mean,
Yeah, just really
there
quick,
was
but
yeah.
I want to paint the picture for people listening.
Hmm.
So the setup was basically there was a screen projector, okay, and then there was a white screen right in the back, and then sometimes there'll be like a little display. Well, I don't know if you did that, but I know like some of your guys would
The
have a
other guys did
display.
that, yeah.
Yeah, that would be very, very even graphic sometimes, and
Hmm.
it'll catch people's attention. At times they'll have like what looked like a dead body. Sometimes I don't know if you did that, but
No, they
some of the
did.
guys involved,
Like a
and
mannequin.
yeah, like a mannequin, yeah, and it'll be like covered in a blanket of some sort, and they'll say like Muhammad was a pedophile, like I mean this is the kind of setup that I
Yeah.
mean I just want people to know like
Yeah,
what
yeah,
they're
yeah.
talking
No,
about.
no, no.
So so here you have been now behind the mic, and there's a camera sometimes. I know sometimes you guys had a camera there
Yeah.
to record, and this is before like YouTube was a big thing. Like not everything was uploaded on YouTube. It wasn't like you guys were trying to gain fame or things like
Right.
that.
A lot of
Um
times for protection too, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
to get a lot of good material,
Yeah, and
because
so
there
anyways,
was a lot of good material.
yeah. So okay, and there actually was. All right, all right. So go ahead, man. Continue on.
Yeah, yeah, and the graphic stuff too would be like on abortion. So
Yeah.
that's when I'm also by the influence of my wife, when I would go with her in LA to some abortion clinics.
Hmm.
Uh, I was finally exposed to what abortion actually looks like, what it actually is,
Hmm.
and so a lot of people would have a problem in both in the mills and the promenade with those signs, right? Like, there's children out here, how could you, how dare you show those kinds of things? And it's like, well, this is reality, we choose to ignore. And there's nothing wrong with entertainment and stuff. You said earlier, maybe I enjoyed it too much at the promenade, and it's like there's nothing wrong with
Right, right,
uh,
right.
enjoying all the entertainment and stuff, but there is a sense in which um, all these people out here are walking by oblivious and trying to dull their minds and their consciences with keeping themselves continually entertained. I think of
Mm-hmm.
Vanity Fair and Pilgrim's Progress, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, where anyone who questions that and starts saying, "Wait, have you thought about the state of your soul?" is immediately to be ridiculed, to be mocked, and to be attacked. There were times when at the promenade, yeah, we were, or people would yell at us, or even one time punched one of the guys. Sometimes because the guys would unnecessarily provoke people and
I have a
just,
story about that in my mind. I can't
yeah.
share it. I can't share it online. I can't share it on here. But anyway, okay, okay, all right. So in case you guys didn't notice, I cut the part out right now to share a story with Ben about that. Okay, anyways, continue on, man. Yeah, so sometimes they would provoke and unnecessarily. And what else?
Yeah, and other times, because there were different guys talking, right?
Yeah.
Some guys would do like just straight apologetics, talk about different topics. There were other guys that were more built for just sharing the gospel, some open air preaching.
Yeah.
Um, and so people would get mad just at that, even at the
Yeah.
sweetest guy that would go up there.
Yeah.
But that was, I think, a key training for me, a very good time of my
Mhm.
life to humble me and to excite me too. It's like,
Yeah.
is there something you want us to do here, Lord? Like, or something that you're preparing us for. I'm not trying to be like mystical or anything, but
Right. Right.
uh, I think that was key to us then being excited to go to the abortion mills,
Hmm.
and even later here in Bakersfield, doing the ministry at the mills, and now with evangelism, we hope to be doing something as well.
Exactly, man. Well, so
Yeah,
this is interesting, bro. So you started going out there maybe when you were so you said around 2012, 2013, around there,
yeah.
right? Before you guys got
Hmm.
married, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
You might have been what, 21 years old at the time? Like 21, 20 years old?
If it's 2012, then I was 22. Yeah.
22. Okay, so 22 years old.
Yeah.
Um, and then so you guys got married 2 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you guys kept going out. You guys kept it up for a little while until you guys moved to Bakersfield.
Yeah.
Around what, 2015,
2016.
2016. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, and we, we can skip that first year, for obvious reasons. But then eventually you get to Sovereign Grace.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you know, you guys start connecting with people, and you guys come across Nick Dirks and others, and you guys do that pro life ministry, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then eventually I hear about it, and I joined you guys a few times,
Right.
um, and that lasted for how long? It lasted for about, I mean, it lasted for like 2 years, I think, right? 2 3 years.
About 2 to 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I think COVID happens,
Yeah.
and did you guys keep going during COVID?
There were, yeah, we did. Um, we did keep going sometimes, and then it started getting weird as to, and even to this day, I think part of the reason that we're still kind of trying to better plan before going out there is because now some abortion mills are they do vaccinations, and Newsom passed a law that prohibits any kind of protesting within a specific distance from vaccination clinics. So you could get in trouble
Wow.
just for holding signs or whatever. It's always so vague, right? No
Yeah,
protesters. Well, what do protesters mean? People just out there praying. People. So
yeah, yeah.
we're trying to iron that out better. But I think um, now with the evangelism thing, my plan at least is to kind of just get people used to being out there, like I wasn't
Mm,
used to at one point. That there I didn't have that culture
yeah.
of going out there. And I'm not saying that everyone has to do open air preaching or everyone has to do things in a particular way, but to get people out of their comfort zones,
Mhm.
because I feel, and you and I have expressed this, that it seems like most of the times reform circles tend to, for all the good that reform circles have, tend to not do as good a job of reaching out to others in evangelism as other groups do.
Yeah,
I don't know if
yeah.
that makes sense.
That makes sense.
um, but at least to get people used to being out there, to get them out of the comfort zones, to just reach out to other people,
Mhm.
but also to make to not make this evangelism thing an end in and of itself. What I mean by that, what I mean is, the point of this whole evangelism thing is to open people's eyes to those around them. It's opened my eyes, and even though I've been involved in this kind of thing for a long time, it's like, oh, wait a minute, I haven't talked to the neighbor to my left ever since I
Mhm.
moved here. Like, there's something wrong with that.
Yeah.
I should reach out. I should try to
Mhm.
talk to them, or coworkers, as far as possible. Right?
Yeah.
There's also such a thing as breaking. What commandment is it? Not to steal. Breaking that by stealing your employer's time when you
Yeah.
should be
Right.
working. Right?
Right.
So please, Christians, don't excuse breaking
Mhm.
God's law for sharing the gospel. Right?
Mhm.
There's a time and a place for that.
Mhm.
Um, but if you can, then yeah, you most definitely should take advantage of that. So
Yeah.
that's the purpose, I think, to open people's eyes to
Right.
being able to organically and more actively and more with more awareness shared with those around them.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. That's good, man. It's needed. It's definitely needed. And here's the thing, man. Reality, like I don't mind confrontation, but I am a people pleaser, and I hate to admit that. I accept that fact about me maybe like 2 years ago, until I just realized, like, man, like, why does it bother me so much when I'm trying to help someone and they don't want to accept my help? And so for me, when I see those environments that are those kind of evangelistic environments that involve confronting and offending people, even,
Mm-hmm,
it
mm-hmm.
makes me really uncomfortable. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
but we have to do it, and
Well,
it just
here's the thing. We talk a lot about doctrines of grace and all that.
yeah.
here's where they're so practical, because
Hmm.
yes, on the one hand, you can be a jerk, and if someone punches you, well, you ask for it. Okay,
Hmm.
that's that. We all understand that. But sometimes just the mere act of sharing the gospel and realizing what the gospel actually is, you're telling someone exactly the complete opposite of what they want to hear.
Yeah.
God says that He's made the wisdom of the world foolishness, and He's using foolishness to reach the people of the world. Like
Hmm.
God, it's kind of like God has a bit of a sense of humor to humble and humiliate His creatures, and make them
Hmm.
realize you're not in charge. I am, and in fact, there's nothing you can do uh, to make yourself be in a right standing with God. That is exactly the opposite of what man wants to hear. And
Yeah.
so that's going to carry with it a resistance to the gospel. So that's where the doctrines of grace come in. Well, why is this so contentious? Why are people so mad?
Hmm.
Because we're all born in sin, because of total depravity, because natural man cannot understand the things of God.
Right.
He's not even capable of doing so. That's not Calvin who wrote that. That's the
Hmm.
Apostle Paul. So when you realize that you're not there to save anyone, I remember back in Southgate, I would go with people from Calvary Chapel to evangelize at the park, which is great. I love that the church even had those initiatives.
Yeah.
Let's go to the Borchardt Mills, let's go to the park and evangelize. That's great. But once we were done that Saturday morning at the park, we would all huddle back together, and we would all ask each other, "Hey, how many did you say?"
Oh wow.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and and I remember even somewhere that there were 20 today, 15. Oh, I only got 5. Oh, you'll do better
Yeah.
next time. And
Yeah.
back to doctrines of grace. It's like you don't save anyone. It's
Hmm.
such a burden to believe that you can save anyone,
Yeah.
or that someone just praying a prayer saves someone. That's a huge burden that you're putting on
Hmm.
someone. But the gospel and the doctrines of grace are so simple that when you realize you can't save anyone, and evangelism is not equal to the fruit of evangelism, which would be the salvation of someone, then a huge burden is lifted off our shoulders, and we realize all the Lord has asked us to do is be faithful to share the message. You know what evangelism is? Sharing the gospel. Evangelism is not saving the gospel. That's a key distinction right there.
Hmm.
Evangelism, to evangelize, is to share the good news, period. Whether God saves someone through that or confirms them in their damnation, that's up to Him. That's not up to us. So that's been a liberating thought that I think is
Right.
shaping even like the evangelism efforts now, so that
Right.
people realize, hey, uh, all I have to do is invite people. And here's where Pastor Chad, he shared with me a statistic done by some pollster organization. It was basically what is the most what has gotten more people to come to the church in terms of evangelism, like follow-up kind of thing.
Hmm.
Has it been door to door? Has it been, I don't know, just asking someone if they want to come, or any other means? Which one do you think was the most effective, if you had to tell me?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Or okay, yeah, I would say inviting people to church like casually.
Yeah, that's actually the
Okay.
one that was the most effective.
Okay.
Not even door to door,
Right.
especially nowadays. I don't want to open my door,
Yeah.
so I'm not saying don't go
Yeah.
door to
Yeah.
door, but
Right. Right.
the point is way simpler than the
Hmm.
church, a lot of evangelicalism has made it out to be.
And here's the thing, man. So more than likely, if anyone's listening to this, right, or anything, a podcast like this one, right, that's the host is reformed. More than likely, you know enough. You know more than enough to share the gospel, and the reason why you don't is because you think you have tomorrow to share it with somebody, and you presume on God's goodness, and you think that tomorrow there'll be a day for me to share. When I'm invited again to go somewhere, I'll try to go this time. And in reality, it's you can't do that. The Christian shouldn't do that. You can't expect that you're going to be here tomorrow to share the gospel, or that your neighbor's going to be here tomorrow for you to preach the gospel to them, or just invite them to church at least, bare minimum.
Hmm.
Especially if you go to a biblical church. and they share the gospel there every Sunday. That doesn't hurt. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So don't assume or presume on God's goodness that you're going to be here tomorrow to share the gospel. And I think that's the number one reason, probably, or the excuse that people give in their own mind on why they don't share the gospel right now. You know, it's not because you don't know enough. You know more than enough. If you're Calvinistic, especially, you know way more than enough than most people probably to share the gospel. And if you're not doing it, I really hope that God convicts you and brings a Ben in your life or Amaris in your life to shake you up a little bit. You know?
Amaris,
Yeah,
yeah.
Amaris.
Bring her,
So
not me.
yeah. So anyway, no
No,
man. Hey,
here's the thing too about what you just said, that we know more than enough. Remember the people that the Lord would heal in the Gospels. I should have prepared the reference for this, but I can't remember who was the blind man, but there was one of them that they asked him, the religious leaders asked him, so how did he heal you? It's like, I've already told you. He did this. He healed me. I don't know. He literally just pointed to the Lord. So it's not like our church said, more than enough, but it's as simple as simply pointing to Christ. You don't need to, well, what if they say, ask a question like this or a question like that? And it's like, well, if you go to a biblically solid church, invite them to church and be like, hey, I don't have that answer for you. Give me some time and look into it. Or in the meantime, hey, my pastor is more than willing to talk to people and ask questions. So you could ask him. Or, hey, why don't we meet for coffee this coming week? And, a lot of people that just start asking like apologetical questions and just, well, what about this? What about that? As soon as you're like, you know what? I don't know, but let's meet this Tuesday at 6 p.m. at Starbucks. They're like, I'm busy that day. Okay, well, then you're not really asking. You're just trying to find a way to reject Christianity or reject the gospel, which I understand. If you're in your natural state, I'm not going to trip about it because the Lord's going to save you if he wills, or he's going to continue hardening you if he wills.
yeah.
That's none of my business, though. I'm going to continue to try to reach to you on this. And even so, it's true what you're saying. We presume upon God's goodness and all that, but at the same time, just as an added nuance to that, it's not like every single conversation has to
No.
lead to the gospel. And you're not saying that, but just to clarify, not every single
Yeah.
conversation is going
Please,
to.
please don't be that kind of person.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
be
yeah.
real. Please don't do that.
Yeah, imagine someone's like,
Oh man.
man, my father is dying. Yeah, I don't care, but are you a good person?
I know.
It's like, okay, that time and place.
Yeah.
Uh,
Right.
yeah. But that's
That's
true.
true, man. No, good stuff, bro. So, hey, man, thank you for just. I learned a lot about you in the last hour. So thank you for sharing all that. It's really interesting, bro. It's encouraging. I can kind of see why now you are the way you are. So not in a bad way. No, but no, but it's actually really cool, man. Because I'm actually really encouraged, bro. By Amaris. I didn't know she played that much of an impact.
Oh yeah,
and all that. So
I would not be here or be doing this
mhm.
if it wasn't for her.
Yeah.
I don't know where I would be without her. Tell her I said that.
I know. So I'll make one clip,
Yeah.
a little clip of this, and then send it to her. No, man, but good stuff, bro. It's great. So for anyone listening, there will be a second part to this interview episode where he kind of dives in a little bit more into his podcast and all that and what he will do. So yeah, man. Just really quick, bro. Like explain what this ministry is about, what you do, and what you plan to do. So yeah, so go ahead.
Thanks, man. Yeah, so it's called El Boletín Reformado, La Palabra de Dios en el Mundo de Dios. And I started just really wanting to share Reformed content exclusively in Spanish, especially knowing that Hispanics, both here and in our countries of origin, don't know anything about Reformed theology. There's such a scarcity of Reformed theology exclusively in Spanish in our countries and in our churches as well.